Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Black Spring. I do apologize for the delay. And thank you so much for your patience. And of course, I had to restart, but hope you guys are doing well and that you will be able to rejoin. So we were talking about, of course, the mob rule and, of course, the senator himself being under attack, and also the the mob actually attacking a Democrat senator. So it's going to be interesting if that actually hits the news, the mainstream media, and how are they going to spin the clip. What I tell you what, they probably won't cover the portion. Thank you so much, Chrysler Imperial H. I really apologize for the activity on my connection. I mean, I've that's been a bit of a consistent problem. It may be time to change service providers, but I think you guys know how it is. So once again, I'm sorry, I'm back to the same kind of housekeeping rules. If everybody could hit the like button, the share button, the usual. So with that said, I will continue. So the next story, I'm going to try to give everybody a chance to get back in here. So I'll go ahead and do another shout out for everybody that's the supporters as well as the subscribers. So I'm going to go ahead and do that before I go into this next story. Thank you so much for coming back in. So what we have here is I'm going to be giving a shout out to everyone, and then also, of course, the patrons. So once again, I always want to thank the patrons for their support, and thank you so much for all that you do. So once again, if you're looking for content, networking, live streams, and much, much more, check out these channels. I'll start with Little Miss Goth. Little Miss Goth is our newest patron. Shout out to you, Little Miss Goth. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Shout out to Sandy K, The Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to Angel Muniz Variety Show. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Shout out to Derek C. Williams. I make sure I didn't miss anyone. So shout out to everybody for coming into the stream. I really appreciate it. Everybody that can rejoin me on this segment. That's greatly appreciated as well. So thank you so much for sharing that out, Chrysler Imperial H. You are really going above and beyond. So thank you so much. And so I'm going to go on and go to that next story. I appreciate that. So thanks so much, Old Head Deuce. I appreciate it. If you guys hit that like button where available, that helps as well. So we're going to go on to the actual story. Now, this is where the people we're talking about, we the people, we're talking about people. I mean, I've heard people in the past growing up or as they got older saying, take the country back, take the country back. Well, these people are expressing, they're doing a different level of, they're thinking they're taking something back, but they're doing it in the mob, in the medium of the mob. And we'll see. I'm beginning to think that I think that BLM might start to lose some steam as well. And you're going to see another faction of people coming out to the streets. So with that, we will start with Senator Tim Scott and his battle on Capitol Hill. I do applaud Senator Tim Scott for what he tried to do. But I think I'm going to give you a little bit of context here and a little background, a little landscaping information in this clip, and then I'll run enough of it, and then we'll come back to it. Because, of course, I think the Democrats are being passive aggressive, and they're playing games. They are the party of destruction. They are the party. They're not building anything. They are the party of destruction. And then, unfortunately, some faction of people have been attracted to that. So here I am to bring you that coverage. Thank you guys so much for making it back here. Amazing, Chrysler. Thank you so much, Chrysler, for that. All right, so I'm going to take you to the coverage right now. So let's just see what we're dealing with.
I told them that. We went to a press conference yesterday and we said an open process. They didn't want an open process. They want one thing, and I'm going to get to that. We're not collecting data. I'm like, well, wait a second. I could have sworn when I wrote the legislation, we were collecting data. So I flipped through the pages and realized, well, we're collecting data for serious bodily injury and death. They said, well, we want to collect data on all uses of force. I said, put it in an amendment and I'll support it. That was just one bone of contention. I said, well, tell me another one. They said, our bone of contention is that we need you to ban no-knock warrants because of the Breonna Taylor situation. I said, your bill does not ban no-knock warrants for the Breonna Taylor situation. Your bill bans it for federal agents. There's not a Secret Service agent showing up at Breonna Taylor's door. That was a local police department. So the fact that they're saying that they want to ban no-knock warrants, knowing they cannot ban no-knock warrants, tells me that this is not about the underlying issue. It's bigger than that. I said, well, I'll give you an amendment, though, and we can have that fight on the floor of the United States Senate. As a matter of fact, I said, tell me any issue you have with the legislation. Well, we went to de-escalation training, the duty to intervene, best practices. I said, in the legislation, in the legislation, in the legislation. I was like, you know, I don't have any here, so I didn't pull it out, but here's where I said next. I said, let's talk about tactics then. They said, well, you don't ban chokeholds. I was like, I could have sworn I banned chokeholds in there somewhere. And then I read the bill. They don't ban chokeholds on the local level, the state level. You know why? There's this little thing called the Constitution. They can't ban chokeholds. Eric Gardner's situation would not have been cured by their ban on chokeholds because their ban on chokeholds were for federal agents. Our legislation instructed the Attorney General to ban chokeholds for federal agents. And what else did we do? Well, we said we would reduce funding by 20%. They'd reduce funding by 10%. So our penalty was twice the penalty of the other side. And this is supposed to be an issue. Mr. President, I'm not sure we have found the issue. We haven't. It's not chokeholds. It's not the duty to intervene. It's not data collection. Because I said on chokeholds, they said, Senator, sat there meeting with them. I said, Senator, it's your definition of chokeholds. That's the problem. See, I assume that when you think of chokeholds, you think of a chokehold, but there is a distinction of the carotid airflow versus blood flow. They said ours only covered one, not the other. I said, okay, you have an amendment, I'll vote for it, we'll change it. They said, we're not here to talk about that. I said, well, wait a second. If we're not here to debate the issue on the motion to proceed so that we can not fix 50% of the bill, not 70% of the bill, but literally slivers slide changes on parts of the bill that would move this entire process forward, and you have the amendments to do so. I even said something that I didn't think I would say. I said, what about a manager's amendment? Let's just fix everything in one fell swoop. He said, no, thank you. So I find it disingenuous that people say, well, why don't you just sit down with one member and work it out? Well, if a manager's amendment won't do it, if the 5 amendments that they wrote in a letter saying that they needed to have these things fixed won't do it, if 20 amendments won't do it, you have an open process on the floor of the United States Senate that requires 60 votes to get off of the bill, then what, pray tell, is the problem? Well, I finally realized what the problem is, Mr. President. The actual problem is not what is being offered, it is who is offering it. It took me a long time to figure out the most obvious thing in the room. It's not the what. I've listened to the press conferences, I've read the newspapers. I'm not sure that anyone who's actually reporting on the bill has actually read the bill. Because the next time I see another press,
I just had to take an opportunity and stop right there, because I've said this before many times, that the Democrats don't read any bills. They don't read any bills. Now, you can go back into the former administration, in which you had Speaker Pelosi saying, "Oh, this is the healthcare the healthcare bill. Oh, we have to pass it to find out what's in it." That's their that's their MO. That's what they do. They want to probably didn't read the bill, but they created a straw man to deflect or to obstruct and to filibuster the whole thing. Okay, so you didn't do this, so you didn't do that. And then the things that he's basically citing here, talking about no-knock warrants, and you want these no-knock warrants for all officers. Well, basically, you just want to destroy and neuter the entire police. That's what you're doing. They will have no power, no physical power, no flexibility, nothing. But you know what? It's not about just destroying the police. I submit that if they destroy the police or dismantle the police in the way that they want, they will build a police force, but it won't be the type of police force that you want. It'll be way worse. It'll be borderline centralize everything, centralize the police. There'll be even more militarized police. They want to make them federally. They many times they are redundant in what they want to establish or rewrite. But now they're just full-blown filibustering and straw manning. It's the same way. Anything that might help a community who cannot maybe afford to protect themselves, or they don't have all the conveniences, those people are going to be the ones to suffer. If you live in a rural area, wherever you live, you're going to have a more difficult time getting access to police. Next time your boyfriend or whomever starts hauling off and pounding on you, who are you going to call? Did anybody say that the police were superheroes? I don't think they were, I don't think that was ever the premise. I don't. But will I say that there is absolutely no need? I won't. But I'm saying that there is an agenda here. And the agenda will be more centralized. And that means your accessibility, if you think your accessibility to the police and to that resource is remote already, if you think it takes a long time already for them to respond to you, what do you think it will be if they rebuild it in their image? Because that's what this is about. It's about the power of them having the power to rebuild things in their image so that they can dominate. You know, many of us have heard of or bared witness to some type of, you know, domestic violence. And at some point, the cops did make it there to pull the guy off of the woman, or to pull him off the kid. They've actually saved a couple of people's lives. They've actually kept a couple of kids from becoming wards of the state. So when people make these blanket statements about, you know, oh, well, we can do so much better. What? Okay, with what? Compare it to what? With what? They have to you have to have a reaction, and you have to call someone. If there's nobody in your neighborhood's not, your neighbor's not going to come. It's going to come a little bit slower, because maybe they're not home, or maybe they're in bed. Maybe they just got off from work themselves. It sounds good, right? Sounds like a good idea. But do you trust your neighbors to maintain or restore order, or be the reactive force, or be the reactive reinforcement? I don't think so. I think if you become less tolerant of crime, maybe you'll have less. Or maybe if everybody just, you know, if you're going to arm yourselves, I think that's probably the probably number one thing. Arm yourself. But here again, this is back to the lunacy and back to the filibustering. I mean, of course, the Democrats filibustered in the 60s when they held up the passage of civil rights and voting rights acts. They filibustered then to do anything to help the people who don't have access to things. They are not for the people. They don't speak out against anything that's going on. You can't get to the doctor on your bus route because they destroyed it a month ago. What did you hear from them? Keep doing it. You've seen the outrage on social media, but you're not going to hear it from them. So I'm sorry, I'll give just a little bit more on Senator Tim Scott, but I do agree. I think, you know, it's locked and loaded is what that's your line of defense, your first line of defense. And after that, good luck with them dismantling and coming back with what? I mean, who would trust them to do that? Shout out to Cold War Jesus says humans need to understand that the police are a part of the human condition. They aren't perfect. I think that this time they can get better. Thank you for that, Cold War Jesus. Old Head Deuce, thank you guys so much for coming back with so many interruptions. Yeah, thank you so much for coming back. And if you could hit that like button for this segment again. I do apologize for having to do a repeat on the housekeeping, but you know, I do what I can to get back here. So shout out to you guys in the stream. Old Head Deuce said, sad but true. I'm also the coroner and burial services. I think I missed something on that. Old Head Deuce says in the Philippines, they have the barangay police to handle smaller situations, and the police chase the real criminals. There's an idea. I mean, I think it's I think there will have to be some changes, but a complete demolishing everything. I mean, just to say that there's a one fix, I just don't think that's realistic. Okay, so with that said, let's see, where was I? Okay, yeah. So I'm going to give you just a little bit more of that, but you can see that I think even I saw one of the Hollywood, you know, I don't subscribe a lot to the deletes, as they consider themselves, or the elites/deletes. I think I heard somebody come out to say that they were applauding somebody from Hollywood. I think maybe it was may have been Ice Cube, that said that he applauded Tim Scott for what he was doing. Well, at least you can recognize, or you get, at least can you see who's actually doing the work, who's actually trying to do something. But look what he's met with. He's met with these passive aggressive straw man arguments and filibusters. And meanwhile, things are just still running mob and rampant. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. Cold War Jesus, I really appreciate you for being in here. And then your Second Amendment rights. I think maybe everybody will, maybe you would get some notion that that is necessary. Second Amendment right. That's where you're going to have to go. You're going to have that and then some. So I will take you back to just a little bit more of Mr. Scott. Appreciate you guys for rejoining me on this segment. So you can see, you know, what the government's actually willing to do is collective. It's a failed. I mean, we've been over this. Horrible. Their commitments to their constituents are horrible. So I applaud Tim Scott for doing what he's doing. And I do agree with the comment that he is emerging. He is emerging as, I think he could be a very decent, more than decent presidential candidate. I really do.
Another story or editorial that says, we don't do this, their bill does that. And you put the two together, and it's not just off, it's just dead wrong. So I realized finally, it's the who that's offering this. Now, I have dealt with the problem of food before. As a black man, I get the who being the problem. It's one of the reasons why I went to Senator McConnell and said, I want to lead this conversation. I'm the person in our conference who has experienced firsthand racial discrimination, racial profiling by law enforcement, and I'm still a fan because I believe that most law enforcement officers are good. But I'm the guy. I am your guy, Mitch, because this is my issue. This is an issue for every poor kid growing up in every poor neighborhood in this nation who feels like when I leave my home for a jog, I might not come back. This is a serious issue. This is an issue for every single kid who says, is this my country? We've heard no. This is the issue that we should be solving. Not the legislative issue. That's not the issue. The issue is, do we matter? We had an opportunity to say, you matter so much, we'll stay on this floor for as long as it takes and as many amendments as it takes for us to get to the issue that says, yes, you matter. But we said no today. 56 people said yes. 4 short. 4 short of saying yes. Yes to having enough information to direct training and resources in such a way that we can hold people accountable. We were 4 votes short of saying yes to having a powerful tool of pulling resources to compel behavior on chokeholds. Because I believe if we've gotten on the bill, we would have passed this bill. But that is the problem, by the way. That's the who I'm talking about. See, as a black guy, I know how it feels to walk into a store and have the little clerk follow me around, even as a United States Senator. I get that. I've experienced that. I understand the traffic stops. I understand that when I'm walking down the street and some young lady clutches onto her purse, and my instinct is to get a little further away because I don't want any issues with anybody. I understand that. But what I missed in this issue is that the stereotyping of Republicans is just as toxic and poison to the outcomes of the most vulnerable communities in this nation. That's the issue. When Speaker Pelosi says one of the most heinous things I can imagine, that the Republicans are actually trying to cover up murder, the murder of George Floyd, with our legislation. That's not politics. That's not a game to win. That's you lose, you will sooner or later lose. But immediately, every kid around the nation that heard that nonsense lost.
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much for coming in today. And I do appreciate everybody for coming in and hitting the like button and doing all that you do to make the channelytics stick. And I really appreciate you guys for that. So that's gonna be the end of that particular segment on Senator Tim Scott. And I think Senator Tim Scott he's exposing the Democrats, and I think it's very apropos to what's going on. He just did he just made a fantastic connection between the type of, and I'm going to use the word prejudice, or the discrimination type of factor. He says basically it's not the what that I'm doing, it's the who that's presenting this. And so he says, I am a Black guy. I understand the dynamics. I understand these instances. I understand these, where I go, I might be subject to this. But then here on this floor, you're no better than the people that are out in the streets. You're no better. You're no less racist for not supporting this presentation, for what you're doing, for the straw man arguments, and what you're trying to neglect. And in fact, you're doing something even worse. You are going to end up covering up the circumstances in which George Floyd was killed, or you're going to cover up those circumstances based on what you want. So I think he's exposing them as well. I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't know how it's going to play out. I'm not at this point. I think the debate is still up. I mean, in some cases, there's just so many things. They've gotten so far away from George Floyd and what happened to him. It's tragic. Anything that contributed to it was tragic, but it's so far beyond that now that the bottom line is he lost his life. And these people want to be passive so that they can continue to so we can continue to bear witness to destruction. They're not about saving lives. Somebody once said that they're the party of death. Well, I believe that. They are the party of destruction. And if it leads to death, so be it. If it leads to assault, so be it. If it leads to mob attacks, so be it. What do they actually want to do? What do they want to do about the danger, the risk? They don't want to do anything. Because I think they also realize that they are losing. I think they realize they are losing. And I think that's a testament to the senator being attacked in Wisconsin and locking himself. Okay, so anytime it's almost like a fairy tale. You know, you got the king and the queen. Why is the king or the queen locking themselves into the tower, into the big tower, the ivory tower? Where does that happen? Was that what was that? It's got a fairy tale, you know, some fairy tale sentiment to that. It's irony, the irony of the people attacking the government or the people attacking royalty. I think that is symbolic. The king or the queen is locked in a castle. because the people are coming for them. There has to be, I know, there has to be a movie that it's either a past. I won't even say it's a remake. Being overthrown. This is what we're witnessing. We're witnessing people being overthrown. The bad thing is that they're not, some of them are just not, they're just so misguided and so indoctrinated. They don't know their anger and their attacks, you know, they may be illogical and they're even misguided in those. But I want to thank everybody for coming out for this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And I'm probably going to run this for maybe another 10 minutes at max. And thanks so much to Console Fix. Really appreciate you for coming in on this segment, on this restart of the segment. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Thank you so much. Cold War Jesus, I appreciate you for coming in. And Gary L. Youngkeist, use your Second Amendment rights. That will be, if nothing else, that would be the takeaway. Do that. Yes, they are very much troubling times. They are very much troubling times. Keith the Faith, I appreciate you for taking the time and sharing your time with us here on Black Spring. Chrysler Imperial H, I really appreciate that. Appreciate you for sharing me out. That is amazing. And let's see. Like I said, I really admire. Tim Scott. He's not a new face, of course, to the Republican Party, but I think he's starting to, if you will, he's emerging, because I think he's starting to grasp like some roots. He's getting roots in many of these issues that are important to people. And I think he's been, maybe in the past, maybe he didn't get as much, maybe he wasn't getting as much time. But there again, I think sometimes, I think sometimes Black people it's good to see that they're bringing a Black man to the floor to talk about issues that disproportionately affect the Black community. I think that's a strong statement, because normally when the media puts somebody forward, they always put a person that's selling destruction. They seem to have a history of selling destruction to the Black community. So I can echo his point very well. He's not a rapper. He's not selling drugs to his community. He's not selling derogatory or defamatory or disrespectful rhetoric about women, or he's not selling any of these things. He's not selling decadence to the American people. So, of course, but in these times, it is time for men of consciousness and stature, and men that value education, value logic, that have an actual love for where they live, and that want to live in peace, that want to live in a civic society, want to make things, that want to improve things. It is time for those people to take their place in front of all the darkness that's been promoted to the detriment of the community. It's time. It's time for people to use their brains. I think it outlasts the other muscles. I really do. As long as you're stimulated, you're going to have, as long as you build a broader framework or broader concepts here, you're going to have a longer career. You're going to increase your lot. There's nothing wrong with sports. There's nothing wrong with all of these things. But those things are not, they're short terms. And that's not the only way you can be successful. And it's very nice to see that. So that's my final on Senator Tim Scott. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment. And as always, keep an eye on the tab. I think there will be some night streams. I'm going to be testing out some other platforms in the near future, maybe even later this evening. So if you're around, there's no obligation. You guys are always welcome here. Even you're always welcome to tune in on a test. And sometimes the tests turn out to be, I've had some of the best streams with you guys under the title of a test. So if you are interested in coming in for that, and I will communicate even if I'm just doing a test. So I really appreciate you. Hi, the definition of anarchy. How are you doing? So yeah, so maybe there'll be some other streaming happening later today, and some tests, and of course there'll be some videos. I need to get some things out that I've been working on. So Old Head Deuce, I really appreciate you guys for coming in. Shout out to the definition of anarchy. He's certainly a loyal patron, and also we'll give one last shout out to the collective on the patrons. Thank you guys all so much for coming into this segment of Black Spring. And I'm telling you guys, there's no perfect schedule. There's no such thing as a perfect schedule, I believe, when it comes to, I guess, coverage or commentary on some of the things that are going on, because there's so much that's not covered by the mainstream media. And so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and do these final shout outs, if you will. And so we have on the patrons, if you're looking for content, if you're looking for videos, if you're looking for live streams, you've got a lot to work with. Networks, you'll find that amongst many of the patrons. So we'll start out with Little Miss Goth, because Little Miss Goth is the newest of the patrons. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you so much. Shout out to Sandy K. If you're still in the midst out there. Shout out to the definition of anarchy. Thank you so much for coming in, and thanks so much for all that you do to support the channel. Shout out to the Angel Munez Variety Show, Killer Whale channels, and that includes Patrick Jane forums and theology forums. Thank you so much, Killer Whale channels. Killer Whale has been around for a long time, and there again, we have Killer Whale goes live. He does a lot of networking. He does a lot of content. And just about most of these patrons, I want to make sure I'm clear on this, that most of these patrons, they offer most of these things. And even if, I'm sure you'll go and take a look and see what works for you. And shout out to Derek C. Williams. Derek C. Williams is a regular and very loyal patron. He does lives, he does content, videos, lots, great network. And I think Derek receives everyone. And thank you guys so much for all that you do. And then shout out to everybody in the stream. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. This is get out and take out the... Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's all going to play out, but who knows? I'm telling you, like, people have lost the faith in the government. Is down, is done. I think it's done on a large scale. I think it is, but I think I'd say maybe you got 20%. How to restore the faith is when I say done. I think the faith in the government officials is down, very much down, because people see what's happening in their streets. People see that their bus stops have been destroyed. They see everything that's happened. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Shout out to the Console Fix. If you guys could be fantastic and contribute to the channelytics just by hitting that like button or unlike button, it helps. Shout out to, let's see, Gary L. Youngkeist Jr. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm gonna read a couple of more comments. I would stretch this to 20 minutes, but another 20 minutes roughly. But we'll see. We'll see. But I had to restart, so it just kind of makes it, it's a disjunct in the programming, and no less. And let's see, the Rapper 10,000. Thanks so much for coming in. Rapper says, let's see. So I had that one. Let me do this one for Cold War Jesus says it's time for them to stand up and not take a knee. Tim Scott hopefully will be a catalyst for others in mass. I think that Tim, like I said roots, but I think he's picking up some traction. And I think it's going to be rooted in, I think he's got a lot of experience, and I think he's a good communicator. I'm really impressed with his communication, and I'm really impressed with the fact that he so eloquently exposed those people. I see grandstanding all the time, but I think he went to the heart of the Democrats and to the heart of their tactics, and he basically, look, your tactics are racist as what you say you're fighting against. So there you got it. And let's see, the Rapper says they and these governors are violating our rights. We need to get out and take them out. Well, I'm telling you, the Rapper, when I'm saying, like, if anybody were to, when I think about this story, when I think about the story with the Democrat senator being attacked or locking himself into, it's literally the peasants. The peasants are attacking you with the pitchforks and the torches. It's very visual to me. I can see a castle, and this image is very clear to me. And I swear it's been covered somewhere in our lifetime, but I just don't know where. Where have I seen anything like this? I've seen it in the fairy tale, but the people, the Empire Strikes Back. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. You guys have a great day. Take care, guys.